This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Southern Cross News. A 36-year-old man who stomped his friend to death during an altercation in Launceston has been sentenced to 21 years in jail. In handing down his sentence, Justice Michael Brett said Anthony John Finnegan had a propensity for violence, but he will be eligible for parole after serving 14 years.
Finally, closure for the family of Peter John FITZGERALD.
We're happy that we've reached the end of this process.
The 56-year-old died at his Summerhill unit on the evening of December the 1st, 2016, following an altercation with Anthony Colin Finnegan. Finnegan was sentenced today after a trial which lasted more than 2 weeks and heard from almost 30 witnesses. The jury hearing details of a day spent drinking, leading to an early morning altercation. While there were other people in the unit at the time of the murder, it was Finnegan who was found to have stomped his victim in the head repeatedly. An act of violence turned fatal.
My dad was my best friend and I'm very lucky for the time that I had with him.
Despite Finnegan's defence lawyer arguing in the trial that some injuries could have been caused when Mr FITZGERALD hit the ground, the jury took just 2 hours to find him guilty of murder. Justice Michael Brett telling the court Finnegan had had a dysfunctional upbringing and a long criminal history which started at the age of 13, but that following the incident he had shown no genuine remorse and sentenced him to serve the next 21 years in prison.
No amount of time is going to serve as justice for the loss of my father. I think the only sense of redemption would be that nobody comes to harm at the hands of the accused.
When handing down his sentencing today, Justice Michael Brett said Finnegan's propensity for violence was a well-established, dangerous and very concerning aspect of his personality. He will be eligible for parole after serving 14 years in prison. LOUISE, HEDGER, Southern Cross News.
Tasmanian fruit growers say they could be hundreds of thousands of dollars out of pocket after changes to the fruit fly support package. Labor's warning the move will cost jobs, while the government says it's stepping up financial counselling for those still facing the fallout.
For tomato grower Anthony Bransema, the spectre of fruit fly still keeps him up at night.
It creates a level of anxiety, and certainly when you wake up overnight, the only thing you can think about is what is the next day going to bring and how are we going to cope with that.
Until now, the answer has been a state government assistance package. It's been footing the bill for fumigation costs, helping growers export out of the control zone and paying producers the difference for fruit thrown out or undersold. But from September 28, only fumigation will be covered, leaving businesses absorbing the financial hit.
And from that point to the 9th of January, it would severely impact my business and the profitability of that.
Now that is going to put severe financial strain on growers and potentially drive some out of business. This is very serious. Promises were made and all we're asking is that those promises are kept.
Some, like the Turners Beach berry patch, say they're still reeling from the outbreak.
Oh, it's absolutely devastating for us. I mean, it means that basically we've destroyed a business that, you know, a big part of our business, which is our wholesale part of our business.
The government says it's moving to a transitional stage of the package and had already spent big bucks on biosecurity, $17 million this year to eradicate fruit fly.
As a government, we're doing everything we can to protect our state, ensure that growers are supported.
It's aiming to have the state declared fruit fly free by January 9. MCCOMISH, Southern Cross News.
The latest EMRS poll spells trouble for the Tasmanian government. It suggests support for the Liberals has slumped 11% since the last poll in May and is 14% lower than the state election. Labor is 2 points behind. Rebecca White has again overtaken Will Hodgman as preferred Premier. The polling was undertaken last week when health pressures, the Angela Williamson sacking saga and the federal leadership crisis were dominating headlines. Tasmania's mental health sector has joined together today calling for action on better treatment options and early intervention. The issue has been in the spotlight, with some patients sharing their stories of being stranded in emergency departments for days.
Organisations in the mental health sector joining forces today in the face of what they say are growing issues.
Crisis is a word that I'm loath to use, but are we reaching a point where we need to see that there is a commitment towards providing better care?
Calling for a 3-point plan based on unified services, early intervention and more information about treatment options.
I find the comments from Mental Health Council today very helpful, very constructive, because this is the conversation that we do need to have so that we can be providing the right care and in the right place at the right time.
We can see that there is government intent to actually establish a more effective and more contemporary model of mental health in Tasmania, but we actually now need to start seeing some action.
The issue has been in the spotlight with stories like Brent Gray's, who was stranded while seeking treatment for mental health issues.
I was in the ED for 8 days or 8 nights, and that was just horrific.
Is that acceptable?
I don't want to see anybody waiting longer than required for any kind of health treatment, whether it's mental health and whether it's within an emergency department or on a ward.
Hannah was diagnosed with an eating disorder at 11 years old, and she says hospital-based treatment badly affected her mental health.
I have spent time in the emergency for other mental health conditions, which again was definitely not the right pathway.
The emergency department should be the last place that people actually land seeking help. We need to see people being able to access help and supports much earlier than that.
An emergency department may well be an appropriate place for a person experiencing mental ill health to receive their immediate treatment, but we all know that it's not a long-term proposition.
Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
Public Health is urging young Tasmanians to take immediate precautions against the potentially deadly meningococcal disease. Those aged between 6 weeks and 21 years are being targeted in a vaccination program, as authorities say they're more susceptible and more likely to carry the disease. It's launching an advertisement with a very personal story.
I lost a close friend to meningococcal disease. She was 18. It all happened so quickly.
Go and see your GP now. If you're over the age of 10, see your pharmacy or contact your local council. Don't wait for the vaccine. It's important to protect yourself and your community right now.
Public Health is planning vaccination clinics in Launceston and on the northwest coast at the end of next month, but says people shouldn't delay protecting themselves or loved ones until then. Tasmania Police is investigating an incident at Hobart's Domain. A man was allegedly assaulted, receiving minor injuries to his hand during an altercation with another man. Police say it happened at around 4 o'clock this morning. A detailed description of the offender isn't available, but anyone with information is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. And police have apprehended a teenager over what detectives have called a serious crime spree in Devonport. The 17-year-old faces a string of charges, including car burglaries, stealing and the fraudulent use of a credit card. The incident's prompting a warning to Tasmanians to ensure vehicles are locked and valuables are out of sight. Meanwhile, a 21-year-old Glenorchy man has been charged over 3 separate incidents at Woolworths stores in Hobart. He's been interviewed and charged with robbery, assault and stealing in relation to the incidents. Designs have been revealed for a major University of Tasmania construction. A development application has been lodged for new student accommodation in Hobart's CBD. These designs show the 14-storey tower up to 45 metres high proposed for Melville Street. It would house 421 beds and doesn't include on-site car parking. The development neighbours the university's proposed STEM centre. Tasmania is putting its hand up for a slice of a new forestry deal. $20 million is being spent on growing the industry, with the state eyeing off the chance to become a new hub for production.
These hardwood pellets have been so popular, Neville Smith Forest Products has been flat out trying to keep up with demand. Such as the confidence in forestry's future, $20 million of federal money is being invested into building new tree farms and 3 regional hubs.
Which will further enhance the ability
of our products getting to market.
Tasmania is bidding to become home to one of those hubs, which will connect new plantations with the right infrastructure.
We've got a very big part of the forestry pie here, so it does make sense that Tassie is part of the solution.
The investment will also look into ways of getting more out of our timber through research and development. We'll have a clearer picture of exactly where the hubs will be located later this month.
An announcement like this just builds our confidence further and allows us to consider other capital projects and other expansion projects.
The value of the nation's log harvest topped $2.5 billion last year. Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
Tasmanians who give the gift of life-saving blood and plasma are being celebrated as part of National Blood Donor Week. One Tasmanian woman who is living with a rare autoimmune disease says if it wasn't for the generosity of strangers, she wouldn't be alive today.
Kira Rickard is only here thanks to the generosity of blood donors. She was diagnosed with Evans disease in 2016, a rare syndrome which destroys blood cells.
Found myself very quickly in hospital at the Royal, extremely unwell, and I needed probably around 40 odd units of blood over a 6-week period just to stay alive.
The 33-year-old is sharing her story as a way to thank those who donate their time and their blood.
Now I'm in remission, so I'm okay for the moment, but it could come back one day and I might need some more help again.
One of those people may well be Kevin Hyland, who is today donating for the 362nd time. He's now part of the furniture, rolling up his sleeves every 2 weeks for nurses to take the vital fluids.
I'm no one special. I don't see myself as being special, even though other people do. Yeah.
Saved over 1,000 lives, so that's pretty phenomenal.
This week, people just like him are being celebrated as part of National Blood Donor Week. But while we remain in the flu season, eligible Tasmanians are being urged to roll up their sleeves to bolster the state's supplies.
And also encouraging people to maybe just make that one extra donation.
All I can say to people is it's only 1 hour. Get off your backside and come in and donate.
LOUISE HEDGER, Southern Cross News.
Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market has closed lower, dragged down by pressure on financial stocks over reports of fresh investigations into the sector. The ASX 200 index has dropped by 17.8 points. Short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 72.27 US cents and 62.29 euro cents.
To the TSL, and Glenorchy is set to learn the fate of star player Zach Webster tonight, with his matter currently being heard by the Independent Tribunal. The club previously rejected the MRP's offer of a 1-match suspension with early guilty plea for striking North Launceston's Ryan Mansell during the Pies' 57-point loss to the Bombers last Saturday. If cleared, Webster will be free to play in this weekend's semi-final clash with Lauderdale. Launceston basketballer Ellie Collins will make her WNBL debut after signing with the Perth Lynx. It comes after a standout season in the Seabull, where Collins scored a team-high 26 points for the Launceston Tornadoes in the grand final. Collins says it was her goal to make a WNBL side this year. The 19-year-old has now moved to Perth and will play for the Lynx alongside Tornadoes teammate Lauren Mansfield. Perth season begins on October 13. And Will Clark has found himself a new team to ride for into the future, with the Tasmanian cyclist signing a 2-year contract with the Trek Segafredo World Tour team for the 2019-2020 seasons. Clark joins Richie Port on the squad and says he hopes to assist his fellow Tasmanian take out some big World Tour wins over the next couple of years. Well, he's got one of the more inspirational stories you're likely to hear, suffering through an horrific injury to eventually rekindle his love of sport. And now Tasmanian Joe Chivers' resilience has been rewarded as he prepares to take on the world's best para-ice hockey players. 9 years ago, Joe Chivers' life was changed in an instant when a skydive over Hobart went horribly wrong.
We're blown off course and we landed next to the Tasman Bridge, which acted as a windbreak and took the updraft out of the chute. We fell 30 metres and the instructor used me as a cushion, landed on top of me and broke my L1 vertebrae.
Battling through a long and painful rehabilitation, the aspiring young footballer once again found solace in sport, refusing to let his disability stop him from competing.
I've always loved hockey, especially ice hockey, since the Mighty Ducks was released back in the 90s.
Chivers' determination through the dark times recently paying off, with a goaltender earning selection in the Australian para ice hockey team, bound for November's World Championships in Finland.
We are actually on little sleds and there are blades underneath the seat. We also have 2 sticks, they're about half the size of a regular stick. They've got ice picks in the end so we can propel through across the ice.
If successful at the tournament, the side will get a shot at qualifying for the 2020 Paralympic Games in Tokyo, which would prove the ultimate icing on the cake following an unbelievable journey.
It's probably strange to think, but it's probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Lean on others and talk about what you're going through and find things that you're really passionate about.
15 degrees today for Hobart. Launceston had the state's top with 16 degrees and 14 in Devonport. 16 for Flinders Island and Bushy Park. 15 for King Island, Smithton, Friendly Beach, Grove and Strawn. 14 for Cape, Grim and Cressy, with a top of 13 degrees at Lowhead and St Helens. On the chart, low-level cloud covering the state today. Further out shows a low to mid-level band over Queensland and New South Wales. A thin low band visible over southern WA, the remainder cloud-free. Tomorrow, a cold front moves through southern WA while a trough runs from the Kimberley into the Bight. North to northeasterly winds 15 to 25 knots, reaching 30 about the west and the east coasts, with seas between 1 and 2 metres. And there is a strong wind warning current for eastern and western coastal waters. On the forecast tomorrow, sunny for the south, 19 in Hobart, 18 for Geeveston, Bothwell 16, cloudy in Launceston 17 degrees, 14 for Devonport, 15 at Cressy, 14 in showers for Burnie, 17 at Strawn, 16 for Curry, with a few clouds about the east, 15 degrees in St Helens, 18 for Swansea and Orford. Things heating up, but rain still for the north and the west on Thursday, extending statewide later. Showers in the west and the north coast for Friday, fine elsewhere, with similar conditions again on Saturday. Around Australia tomorrow, 16 degrees and showers for Perth, 20 for Adelaide and Melbourne, 16 in Canberra, 19 degrees and showers for Sydney, with a top of 21 for Brisbane. And a few clouds in Hobart, 10 degrees, 9 degrees in clear for Launceston, and 9 in a clear evening in Devonport. Joe, I've got my badge, I see you've got yours, so don't forget this week is Legacy Week. Give generously to volunteers, all funds supporting families dealing with injury or death in the Defence Force, and it's a really important cause, Joe.
Oh, Sam, it really is. Thank you very much for that. Well, that's all from the team for now. Have a great evening. See you a bit later.